So let's get started. We will have a bit of an icebreaker activity as well, so that will also give some more time for others to join. Firstly, of course, thank you everyone for who is here with us today. We're very excited. My name is Lara and I am the admissions consultant at European Leadership University. Now, some of you are already students at European Leadership University, part of our first cohort in data science, and others maybe have an interest in data science, others are thinking of actually pursuing a degree at our university or maybe elsewhere. But today's session is really open to everyone who has that interest in bridging, let's say, the business world and especially the management consultancy world and the data science or the data analytics world. So I'm very excited that today we have Alper Tenguz with us, and I'm sure he will also introduce himself. But Alper, among many things, is an executive coach and organizational consultant. Today he will especially draw from his experience as an engagement manager at McKinsey, so I'll also be sharing, I believe, a case study from his time there. But he's also one of the faculty members of European Leadership University. So specifically, he works on action learning, which is a unique part of our educational model, where we really bring the voice of the student to the program. So today will also be an interactive session. We definitely also want to hear your voices and your ideas. In the meantime, whenever Alper is presenting, you can also leave your questions in the chat. So in the toolbar below, you will find a chat option, and I will keep track of your questions so we'll also be able to answer them. So I'll pass it over to Alper for now.
Thank you so much, Lara. Hello, welcome to our webinar, to the old faces, current students, and also those of you who are new. Indeed, I have a twofold objective for our gathering here. One is to share a bit of my experience from the top management world, from my time at McKinsey, where I was a management consultant. I started right after college there, so as a youngster, and I spent a couple of years there working all the way into project managerial roles. And I even had the opportunity to work and live in Mumbai. I see a few of you are probably from the Indian subcontinent, so greetings to all of you there as well. And I want to do it in a way that also familiarizes you with the European Leadership University participatory approach to learning. Which basically in a nutshell means that we all have our own experience and our own learning happens for us with ourselves rather than just a teacher who has all the knowledge and basically just transmits like a download connection to you. And sometimes we also don't assume that the download has errors in it, so that you sometimes have faulty data on your side. But we actually use these kind of discrepancies between what I as a teacher might be sharing or what others as from their teaching point are sharing and say, oh, that's interesting. My experience is different. How is that? Let's talk about that. So for us, there's richness in these, what others might call errors. For us, they are more beautiful discoveries. So I hope we can experience some of that. My name, for some of you, will suggest that I am from Turkey. I'm calling in right now from Istanbul. And I had also the fate that my parents my mom gave birth to me in Germany. So I was also privileged to grow up there. And I also had the fortunate occasion to study industrial engineering in the United States. And as I said, I started then working at McKinsey, and now I'm working as an organization development consultant. And I still continue working for various consultancies around the world as part of their faculty pool, where I train young consultants, such as some of you who might want to go into such a path, for example, on how do you merge your expertise, your technical expertise with a business advisory expertise. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and for that I want to share my screen with you. Yes, PowerPoint. So here we go. Now, here, how to use tech skills in a business environment. That was the title of our webinar. And I want to show you I want to share with you a bit about data analytics and the importance for top management. And I also want to show you something about the McKinsey approach to disciplined problem solving. And at the end, discuss with you the implications for your own personal growth as an advisor of top management decisions. My assumption is that many of you are working in organizations, in companies, maybe in a data analyst or in some kind of in a role, something like that, a technical expertise role. And I would be curious to have a conversation with you about what the material that I will be presenting here might mean to you as you're advising your direct report, but also framing the problem solving in your teams as something that is relevant to the company as a whole, which is the distinctive part of McKinsey's way of approaching business issues. So before we get started in earnest with these things, it's a part of our learning approach at ELU is also, well, if the wisdom is not just with one formal teacher, but it is with many of us, then it's important that we know who's in the room. So because today we are quite a number of people, I want to suggest something around these 3 questions, a check-in, just like you check in for when you go to the airports and say, I am here, I would like to board this flight to the new knowledge land. You tell them who you are and where you're flying off from, who you are, and what you would like to have happen on this flight here for you today. And I put the popcorn there. So normally in our class we would go and have everybody talk. But just to experience this process, I'd like to invite maybe a few of you to pop. Whoever feels like a popcorn in the heat. If you're ready to pop, you just speak up. You raise your voice and unmute yourself and answer the 3 questions. Where are you at the moment? Where are your feet touching the ground? So for me, this would be Istanbul. Who am I? I shared a little bit about myself. You can answer this in any other way. You might be a mother, a father, a child, a son, a senior executive already. You might be the founder of an IT business. So I've put this question general in purpose. And also share a little bit, what would you like to have happen here today for you? And for me, what I would like to have happen here today for me is to connect with you and to learn more about what kind of, what interests you in ELU, and also what might this material that I'm sharing hold in terms of opportunities for your own personal growth. If I could find out a little bit about that, I think that would be amazing. So I have a virtual ball in my hand, so some of my students will notice I will put this into the virtual middle, and whoever would like to pop, please take that virtual ball. That gives you the right to speak, and it gives us the pleasure to listen. So whoever would like to say, I think we'll spend 7 to 10 minutes on this one, and then we'll see where we are. 5, 6 voices maybe. So let's go. Who would like to pick up the ball?
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Trishala, but agree amongst yourselves, please. Who would like to go first? I think there were a few people who wanted to go.
Zara, was it you?
What?
I'll just go, Trishala. If you just we assume you have the ball. You can pass.
Okay, fine, sure. Okay. So I'm in Bangalore currently, and I'm still in my office. I thought I'll finish this session and then leave to the home. And the weather is amazing here. It's raining. So Bangalore was hot. Now it's getting some chilled vibes around. Who am I? I'm Trishala. I'm working as a senior software engineer in Dell EMC. And I have got 10 plus years of experience in the data domain, storage domain, virtualization. So this is a very short introduction about myself. I'm basically from Karnataka of India. Okay. So third question, what would I like to have happen here is it's always great to have session from Alper. So I always try not to miss any sessions from you. So I'm here to learn everything which you will be talking to us today. So everything what you say is I'm looking forward for. And the topic is very interesting. Thank you. Well, back to I'm just popping it back.
Whoever would like to take it, please go ahead and take it. Whoever feels ready to pop.
Hello.
Yes, please.
I'm Nadia. I'm joining from the small little country of Doha, Qatar. And my background is in industrial automation. I work for Honeywell Process Solutions in the oil and gas industry. And I've been, moving on to a more business-oriented, though I'm an engineer and I work on engineering projects, I've been getting more and more business-oriented, responsibilities, and I'm doing a little bit of analytics in related work. So I'm just interested, what I would like to happen here today for me is to get a bit more idea and to see the different ways in which data science and analytics can translate into the business world.
Thank you, Nadia. You have the choice to either put it in the middle. This is the soft approach. So whoever else would like to pop can pop. Once we get to know each other a little bit more, another approach is to throw the ball to another person in the virtual world here. So we see some of the names here. I'm not sure if you know anyone, but you could pass it to someone, and if that person feels ready, they can speak, and if not, they can say, oh, thank you for passing me the ball, but I'm not ready yet to pop, and you just throw the ball to somebody else. That's also absolutely acceptable. So whatever you would like to do, Nadia. So let's assume that Nadia has put it back in the middle. So whoever would like to pop and share, go ahead.
Hello. Hello to everyone. I would like to take it. So I am myself Khushbu Nandal, and I have completed my information science and engineering last year, and currently I am enrolled in Masters in Data Science at ELU University. And today I'm expecting to know a bit more about the technical skills in a business environment, as we are already going through these kinds of skills at ELU University. So looking forward to upgrade our skills or to have more broader view of technical skills in a business environment. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
Pass it to somebody, Khushbu, and if that person is ready, they can speak or pass it on. If not,
then I would like to pass to Mani. He seems to be ready.
Thank you so much, Cosmo.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and hello to Alper. It's good to see you again. And let's start with where am I? So as of now, I'm in my office, India, Bangalore. It's a Dell EMC Corporation. And currently I'm done with my office work. I'm completely free. And I made myself free for this session specifically. So I came office early and finished it by 5 itself. So I'm very excited. And who am I is, I'm a principal engineer in my team, and I'm also taken additional responsibility as a Scrum Master. And currently, I'm struggling with from technical to technical expectation from my senior superiors as well as the management side. So this session is pretty much relevant to me at this point in time, because in my previous experiences, I was heavily work on the engineering and technical side. And now suddenly they're expecting me to work in a business part and see the projects and, the other dynamics of the business as well as the leadership part. So I'm really struggling and trying to learn, balance both sides, my technical expertise as well as my business and decision-making skills. So I would be really appreciate to have this session and would like to hear more from the Alper. That's all from my side, and I would like to pass the ball to Zahra. Thank you.
Good morning. Hi everyone, my name is Darrell, and who am I and where am I? I'm living in Iran and Tehran especially, and at the moment I am at the house because my office and my house is the same time. And who am I? I'm a researcher at the university, and I'm doing most of the time non-profit research for the university. And what would I like to have happen here? I would like to know much more about the management and business case, because I don't have any idea about any business case, especially related to data science project, because we are going to learn about data in the future. And I would like to know much more about business case and how to manage this project in the future. And that's it. And I would like to pass the ball to someone that we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hanash, I don't know. It's the exact name. I don't know. Hanash. The Hanash? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to pass the ball to Hanash. Yeah.
Yes. And if you're ready to pop, please speak. And if for some reason you're not, feel free to pass it to somebody else. Dan.
Should I choose another one?
Hi.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there was
That's
a
good.
mute button. Yes.
Hi, this is Dhanush.
Okay,
I'm currently pursuing my undergraduate in Venkateshwara College of Engineering, and I'm from Bangalore. And what would I like to have happen here today for me is that this was an interesting session, because I had like both technical plus like business skills, which is like so important to like in further future or something. When you're working in company, you should have both business skills and technical skills. So if you're having both business and technical skills, it will be useful in further like building of your career or something. So I thought this session was useful, so I came to this session and joined it.
Okay, super. So thank you and welcome. And welcome to all of you. Even if you have not spoken yet, there will be more opportunities to speak. this gives you a little bit of a feeling of how we start our sessions. Once we get more and get to know each other, the questions change. We do updates on how we're doing, and it gives you a sense of how we can stay connected, even in a virtual world, via this media. And it has the power that we can work globally together, rather than just being limited to our geographic destination. So with your permission, I would like to continue to our next part, which is I wanted to just share a few ideas about data analytics and the importance for top management, based on a couple of sources, both from McKinsey but also other places. So when you go on the ELU website, we talk about this Harvard Business Review article that appeared in the 2012 issue on getting control of big data. And the title was that data scientist is the sexiest job of the 21st century. And if you look at this role, I mean, the term was just invented really or claimed in 2008. So it's barely 10 years old. And since then, LinkedIn, and who is now very active in the global search for talents, is increasing its using its keywords for data science and data analytics roles. And you can see also here, as part of all the roles that they have on their job starters page, you know, it has been increasing quite rapidly. And I'm sure this is not something that is just going to dip in the near term. When you even though the demand is rising, here's a bit of research from McKinsey's Global Institute. This is their think tank on global issues and the transition of societies into data and Industry 4.0 societies is a big global phenomenon. And when they look at various industries, US retail, manufacturing, public sector, or healthcare, and they have a look at how much you could use actually data and data analytics and how much of that is actually being captured, it's still quite a big of a variety. And so I think the key message here is that data analytics has a huge potential and it's going to increase. And it's going to increase in sectors that at the moment might not even really understand the importance or the relevance of data and analytics. And this is where you potentially could come in. Some of the interviews, however, when you talk to managers in who are working here, like my Turkish compatriot Ibrahim Gökçen, who until recently was head of Möller and Maersk's, the logistics company that is responsible for over 20% of global container shipments. He said the following, that the inclination for people to say, well, yeah, we have lots of data. That's nice. That must mean something, right? But he says, you know, the quantity of data is not the right mindset. It's a focus on the outcomes and the business objectives that are important. And you need to drive, you have to have the business objectives and the customer objectives drive what he calls a digital feedback loop, and not just the availability of cool analytics or a ton of data. Another executive from the banking industry, JP Morgan, one of the leading banks in the world, Ross Kasper, says, you know, that the best advice that he has gotten in implementing a data culture is to stay true to the business problem. What is it, and how can you solve it? And I'll come back to this very important piece of advice a little bit later when we go into the McKinsey approach. And if you simply rely on huge quantities of data, he says, you're kidding yourselves. Volume is not a viable data strategy. Solving business problems must be part of your data strategy. So regardless of whether you're in oil and gas, whether you are in a hospital, whether you are in a public sector area, you have to ask yourself, you know, you don't start with, well, what could we do with the data? But you would have to ask yourself first, what kind of business challenges or business opportunities do we have? And how can data help us to solve this? Yeah? And this this basic idea I will develop a little bit further through the McKinsey problem solving approach. Well, McKinsey has started to define that in the following way. They basically start from left to right. They're saying you have to start with understanding what is the source of value for a business. Yeah. And so, for example, Zahra, you said you're doing research for some of at your university. Yeah. So the question you could have asked yourself is, what is the value that this research is generating? Yeah. And who is benefiting from this research? And what kind of challenges are they trying to solve with the results of your research? And you can ask yourself then also, what kind of questions do they have that I am not yet answering with my research, with my analysis? Yeah. Nadia, I don't know so much about the specifics or in your case, but at your industry it would be similar. You can ask yourself, of course, at various levels, you know, what's the source of value of our Doha business unit? How do we generate value to our customers? And what kind of opportunities do we have to do that? Then as a second step, you go into the data ecosystem, either internal to your organization or sometimes that data is outside. Yeah, and it's external. And this is actually where some of the big issues in the past years around Google and Facebook and other companies is emerging, where say, who owns my data? Is the data that I put on Facebook or Instagram, is that my data? So is it external to Facebook? Or is it internal to Facebook? Does Facebook own the data? And in Europe, we have a very clear tendency now to regard my data, my personal data, as my property. And I'm making a contract with a company like Facebook that I give them my data for their internal use. Yeah? So you look at the data ecosystem and have a look of what kind of data you have, systematically or unsystematically. And then in the next step, you start building some models. This is where your research might come in, Zahra. Yeah? You say, well, how could I start thinking about the problems that my customers are having and that they're coming to us? And you're trying to build a couple of insights that are interesting for them. And if you are then finding a way that is really useful, these little tests and pilots, you could ask yourself, well, how do we make it part and parcel of the company's processes? Yeah. For example, well, could we build an app, an iPhone app, or an Android app that could help us internally in the company or also for our customers to stay connected? Now, I'm using since yesterday an app on managing my food intake. And it allows me to enter data, and it allows the company for, if I wanted to, they can sell me recipes that help me attain my diet objectives. Yeah? So it becomes part of their workflow integration of their company. And with the adoption, what it means is the larger scale rollout, that it's not just in Doha or in Bangalore, but it's in other parts of the organization, let's say if it's geographically spread, that other parts of the organization are also adopting it, and it becomes a widespread practice. Yeah? So you start from the left and work yourself to the right in what McKinsey would call its approach to data analytics. I wonder how you like this chart. It's basically looking at three skill domains, and some of you talked about business and technology already. And that your technical skills are being demanded by your superiors. I think, Manu, you mentioned that the technical skills are good, but more and more you're getting pulled and asked questions that relate to business implication sites. Yeah. So people are, and then in this framework, there's also analytics sites, right? So, and the overlaps are interesting, right? So what we call in our ELU, the data scientist program, is in this definition here, a merging of the technological skill using the databases that a company might have, for example, internal or external, with the analytical skills that software might provide, Python might provide to analyze and visualize data. But when you add the business side of it, a couple of new things emerge, namely the role of the data architect and also the role of the analytics translator. And this is in particular a role I would like to focus on a little bit more, because my former colleagues at McKinsey have focused on this quite a bit. The analytics translator role is defined in each step of the workflow as somebody who actually helps management build the bridge between what you can do with your data and what it means for the business and its customers, right? So in the first step, you help identify and prioritize the areas of the business. So Manu, your manager might come in with a topic for him or her, and you can help them understand, well, I understand your problem, but can you talk to me in terms of value? What would we be, often they come with a problem, but it's not so clear what the solution would be helpful with. So you can ask, I get the problem, but if we were to solve it, what would you be able to do that you're not able to do right now? And helping articulate that can be already very powerful. Yeah, well, if we would have the right analysis, we could really serve our customers in a faster way, for example. Maybe speed. Oh, I see. So the core source of value seems to be speed. Yes, speed, but also reliability, because oftentimes when we do the interaction with customers, we have errors in the way of how we understand. So I understand it's speed and it's reliability of the way that we interact with them. Yes, Manu, you got it. So by asking a little bit the silly question or the basic question, you actually realize it's actually very profound. It helps clarify the thinking of the business person. So that's a much better mindset than thinking, well, they're the business people. They should know, right? So let me just make my notes. Okay, they want this and this. And then we go to our teams and we can't even answer one or two basic questions that the team might ask because we were too shy and afraid to ask, or we assumed that the business person would know. But my experience also as a consultant is when we ask the basic questions, it also helps the thinking of the people who are so much in this problem focus. Then you can do the other steps. You can, because when you have a better understanding of what the source of the value is, then you can be a true management advisor. You can say, look, guys, this is the data we have internal, but we also need to collect data external. And if they say, well, we don't have the time or the resources, said, well, you know what? The reason why you need to take the time and the resources is because, as I understand, you want to have speed and reliability, and you can only get that if you add the external data to the picture. With the internal data that we at the moment have, we don't know it. We just have no clue. For example, that's one of the reasons why the car companies are very scared of Google Maps. Because Google Maps is basically taking the data ecosystem into their hands in terms of navigation. And what Daimler, the company that owns Mercedes-Benz, is doing is they're developing their own material for maps. Because when you go into autonomous driving, there's a huge strategic threat if you don't have control of the mapping material. Yeah. So the value might then go from the car to the software company that provides the basis that the car can drive. Who would want to drive a car that doesn't have a navigation system if it's autonomous, right? It will be a dumb car. Who wants a dumb phone? Everybody wants a smartphone these days. So you can be an advisor of what the data that the company might have to take from external to internal can be really powerful. And so on and so forth. I won't go into all the details. There's a great report, again, from the Global Institute, The Age of Analytics, where they talk more about the analytics translator. And my colleagues have written also, if you Google analytics translator, again, on the McKinsey quarterly webpage, you can find more data on this one. So I would encourage you to read up on this one, and if I have inspired you a little bit with this research, that's great. So I want to transition now to how does the McKinsey consultant think about problem solving? McKinsey in the past year has gone on a shopping spree and bought data analytics specialty companies from around the world. One quite well-known one is a British company called Quantum Black. And Quantum Black got famous by using data analysis in Formula One teams. And they analyzed the racing data from the team from the past weeks and used that data to fuel the strategy for the race the next week. And this has been tremendously powerful, and that's how they gotten their name. And now their claim to fame is we help you become an elite team by using the data of your company for whatever competition that you have. So they're bringing the Formula One world to the normal business world. And McKinsey has bought them. And now and then when I'm going on trainings with McKinsey, I actually meet consultants from Quantum Black who are like saying, whoa, I've been a data scientist, engineer, and senior project manager already, but this way of McKinsey problem solving is a bit strange. And when we do trainings with them, you know, I get a lot of questions. How do we bridge this? I want to talk to you a bit more about this bridge. So this is my way in which McKinsey would talk about the 7-step problem solving. I've simplified this into 5 steps, but in a sense, it's still the same. It basically starts out on the left-hand side. And you start out by asking an interesting question. A business challenge, this is the source of value. And an executive might come to you with a problem, and it might be your job first to define the problem in a way that is actually gives you insight. So Manu, again, if I can piggyback on you, maybe the executive is asking you a very specific question. Hey Manu, can you get me the data on this and that? Or can your team run an analysis on the last 5 months of the year on this and this aspect? And you would say, yeah, I get that specific problem, but I don't understand the context in which this problem is being asked. So for me to be just a better advisor of you, can I ask you, if you would have the answer to this question, what problem would you be able to solve? So it's useful to separate a little bit the question from the broader problem in which this question is being asked. And that's a great way in which you can have a conversation with your executives. This opens up a whole area of problem solving, because then you might structure the problem. Well, say, you know what, you asked me to bring the analysis of the last 5 months, but actually I see 2 other ways. We can do that, but there are 2 other ways in which we could get you an answer to the actual thing that you would like to achieve. Rather than analyzing the last 5 months, maybe we could do a predictive model that actually feeds in real time the data that we get every week for these kind of things. Would that be, because I understand what you actually would like to do is you would like to get some insight into how customers are going to react in the future. And sometimes the past data, if you go too far back, might not be the best indicator for that. So you're structuring the problem, and I'm going to show you a little bit more how McKinsey thinks about step 1 and 2. And then you can prioritize the issues, and I'll show you how that works. And then when you are at that point where you have said, of the many issues that we have, here are the top 2, then you can start closing and work towards the quotation mark at the end towards a solution by building a model, testing the research, having an intermediate presentation, seeing how the clients react. And this is what McKinsey calls iteration. So they don't disappear for 6 weeks and do an analysis and come back with the results. They come back after 1 week and say, in this week we have done this progress. Let me show you the results and see what you do, so that we can see what else we need to do in the 2nd week, in the 3rd week, in the 4th week, so that we are getting better and better in refining the problem. Yeah? And so it becomes a co-creative process. And so if your managers are telling you, hey, data analysis team, go analyze this and come back to us in 2 weeks, you would say, well, rather than coming back to you in 2 weeks, we'd like to have 2 meetings, one at the end of this week to show you where we are and our initial ideas, and then have a second meeting where we show you a little bit more of that, and then have our final meeting where you would actually can see the results. But by that point, you know exactly what's going on, because I'm betting you in the first and the second meeting, when they're seeing some of the stuff that you're bringing to the table, they will also realize, oh, you know, now that I'm seeing that, I'm realizing this and that. But if you would not have had those interactions, you would have worked for 2 more weeks and they would have been disconnected, and you would have found it difficult at the end to connect what you have produced with what they actually want. So then the problem solving doesn't go to one point, it goes to a different point, and they are at a different point, and then you have actually a disconnect. So each one of these steps produces an output, and I want to show you the for step 1 and 2, the problem solving worksheet and the problem structuring sheet. And what is meant with the week 1 answer and the dummy deck is, for example, a PowerPoint presentation. And at the very end, I want to show you a little bit more about the step 5, simply communicating your finding. And there's also a very much management consulting way of communicating your finding that you should be aware of. So I will just continue for the time being, so we can go to an interactive point in a moment. Yeah. So if you would be on a McKinsey study, you would get an empty sheet like that. It would just have the bold categories. It would have the basic question. And this would be the question that the executive is asking, or it's the refinement of the question of the executive. So they come with a problem, you do a little bit of questioning, and then you ask, you put in the question. So you're asking us not, can you bring us the analysis from the last 5 months? You're asking us, how can we use data, our data analytics, to provide faster speed and higher reliability to of our customer requests? And that might be the basic question. In the vision box, you would write down all the things that define what the executive would like to have happen. Let's say we have done the analyses. What would the company be able to do that it's not able to do today? And the context might be, well, you know, our competitors are doing it, or new companies coming into the market, or customers are asking more and more for this, and we're having huge quality issues. All these kind of things you can put into the context box. The best practice would be things, maybe you have already had some successes in the past, but there have been individual things. They have not been systematic. But there's maybe something that you can learn from the good practices within your company from this. And the success criteria is, you would ask the executive, hey, boss, if we were to do this, how would you know that we are successful? And then you write in the qualitative and the quantitative measures. Well, we would be successful if we could increase the speed of our customer response down to 5 business days. Oh, may I ask as a context, what is it on average right now? Well, on average right now, it's nearly 10 business days, and sometimes we have even peaks that go up to 30 business days. Oh, that's a very good context thing. So here we have a very clear success criteria that we can put in. Sometimes we talk about the solution space and other areas that I've outlined here, but I won't go into that detail. But you know, maybe the executive might say, look, I understand the external data, but could you, like, for the scope of my initial question, I don't want you to go external data. Just give us the answer that you can answer with the data that you already have. Even though we might have limitations, I understand that, but I want to get an initial sense of what we can do, what we have, so that we can then make a convincing case of what else we need. Okay, so that's the solution space. Every McKinsey team should fill out a sheet like this, because it helps a 6-person team align. And sometimes as a project manager, what I would have done is I would have copied the sheet and I would have given it to my team members and said, please fill it out to the best of your current ability. And then we would compare. And we would see that people have different ideas and different thoughts. And you know what, when we did this with our client, when we gave this to our client and said, could you fill this out? And we compared to what we as the team had written as our consensus sheet, it's again looked different. So if you give your boss this sheet, Manu, and you fill out this sheet and you put them next to each other, the power of this sheet is it helps you align on the question that you want to answer. And if you have disagreements of that, it's very good to answer them now before you do 2 weeks of work with your team, rather than find out on the road that, oh, I did, you know, sometimes you say, I told you to meet at Starbucks. Yes, boss, I thought you mean the Starbucks next to the office. No, not that Starbucks, idiot. That Starbucks where we usually go. Oh, okay, sorry for that misunderstanding, right? So we're talking Starbucks, but there's so many different versions of it running around, you kind of miss what's going on. So this is the power of this problem-solving worksheet. Simple, but when projects go off track, off budget, off scope, it's oftentimes you can trace it back to unclear problem-solving definitions at the beginning. So this is also something that you could fill out, Zahra. You know, when you have your client said, could you fill the, in preparation for our meeting, can you send, can I send you this sheet and could you fill it out to the best of your ability, you know, as much as you can, and then we will complete it with our thoughts during the meeting. At the end of the meeting, we have one sheet that we will actually, we can always update, but we have one sheet as a common page to work from. Yeah, very important core consulting skill. And this helps you as a data scientist to become a business-oriented data scientist. You drive business to an end goal, just like our two executives at Merck and JP Morgan were saying. Now, this is something that if you work in management consulting, this is not McKinsey specific, but if McKinsey were to ask a basic question, they would create an issue tree based on that question. So how can we improve speed and reliability of a company, of our customer service, for example? You would write down next to the question 3 ideas. And 3 is a very powerful number in consulting. It's not always 3, but it helps just as like a mantra. It helps to say, hey, Alper, do you have any ideas of what we could do? Well, I have 3 ideas, maybe. Let's see. So the first idea I have, the second idea, and the third idea. And maybe I don't have a third idea, but say, okay, I think these are the 2 ideas, boss. So the idea of having just 3 is very powerful because it structures our communication. You become less random. Say, guy, for this question, we have 3 ideas. So you ask the question, how could we increase speed and or reliability? And you have maybe an idea 1, 2, and 3. And maybe the idea 1 can be broken down into idea and a sub-idea and a sub-idea with a bit more detail. Yeah? And this allows you to break down the problem into different. So you might actually you might have 3 ideas for 3 different types of analyses or 3 ways in which to answer the boss's question. And you can put them there and you can say, hey boss, which one of these, I mean, each idea has a cost and a benefit. The benefit of this idea is we have all the data internal, but it doesn't give us a good understanding on the speed. But if we get a little bit more data, we can answer that question more, but it has a cost because we need to collect that data first, maybe with some trial customers. Yeah? And so you can use this issue tree, as they call it, or an idea tree to actually drive the systematic conversation of a problem. And we draw these really like this, and I'll show you in a moment. We'll do an example together. So for example, how can I have more money at the end of each month without incurring a debt? Well, you could increase income or you could reduce expenses. Well, how do I, and now you see the how it works. You ask how or why 5 times. How do I increase income? Maybe I'm lucky in the lottery and I get a windfall profit. Maybe I receive more money from some of my investments. Maybe I receive more money from work. Yeah. I like this. How do I receive a windfall? Maybe legally through winning a lottery, or illegally, well, by robbing a bank, right? So that could be one way. How do I reduce the expenses? Maybe I pay less for the same amount of items. Maybe I buy lower quality items. Maybe I go online and I find a better offering, etc. Or may I buy less in the quantity. So at this example, it looks a little bit silly, but when problems get complex and many of your executives will not understand data analytics, drawing it out like that will help them get insight. And sometimes your bosses don't know a lot about your domain of work, but they are not humble enough to ask. So they pretend as if they understand how artificial intelligence or machine learning works, but actually they have no clue. They just read an article on it and think it's super easy, but you have to educate them. So this is a very comprehensive way. We call this an issue tree in consulting, but there's another way here that's called the hypothesis tree. And maybe then asking questions, you ask, you already have some experience or some expertise. So you ask me how I can reduce my money, I can have more money at the end of each month. Maybe you're an expert in money management. Maybe you have taken a course on this one. So you say, well, you don't say you could do this or that. You can say there's one best way and this one has worked. Or there are two best ways, and there's costs and benefits to do both. So you go down, you can do comparison shopping, or you can change your lifestyle. Yeah, but you say lifestyle change, given the time that you have, is not an option. Yeah, so you have to do different things. So the hypothesis tree is something very powerful if you have your 5 or 10 years of experience, or you have talked to experts outside of your domain of knowledge and said, look, we interviewed 2 experts on machine learning. They are, for this to work in our company, you have to go this route or that route, for example. Yeah. Let me skip on this one. So I have to. So why don't we create our own issue tree, and we do it online here as we are speaking. Let me go and make this a little bit bigger. So can I use your help, and maybe you can give me an issue you personally care about? Maybe it's a personal topic, or maybe it's a topic that your company has. And we do a few minutes of issue treeing. It could be a social topic, like in Istanbul, I'm dealing with traffic. So how do I reduce Istanbul traffic would be something that I would be interested in. But what are you guys interested in? A business or a personal or a society topic? And I will write it here. Doesn't have to be something super serious. Could be, how do we have more people celebrate Mother's Day? I don't know. Or how do we assume that people don't? So something like that, you know. So what's an issue that you care about? Part of our ELU approach is also to allow silence, that so that thoughts can emerge and we can have we can let that go about. Throw out some ideas, and that might help us stimulate the thoughts of others.
Guys, I'm actually referring to my batchmates. Guys, do we want to talk about how effectively a time management for our learning? Can we take this up, or anything is fine? I'm actually scared to talk about ideas sometimes.
Time management, cool.
For our learning with ELU.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, time management. Why don't we, in the interest of time, why don't we just try that? So you come with a problem, time management. Now the first step would be to make this into a question that gives a better idea of, if you were to solve the time management issue, what would you be able to do that you're not able to do or struggling with right now? Give us a little bit more context. what would be the, what's the vision? What's the possibility? If you were to manage, because we're going to say, how can we, or how can I manage my time for ELU better such that ... What's the ...
I achieve, I cover more topics in a week.
Such that I can cover more study topics in a week. And by when do you have to be able to solve this time management issue? How much time do we have? Or in what time frame would you like to make some progress?
Okay, are you talking about the incremental difference week by week?
Well, you could say maybe, Alper, by the end of the month, I would like to make some tangible progress on this one.
Yes, it sounds, yes, correct.
How can I improve by the end of May my time management skills such that I can cover more topics in a week? So let's say, how many topics can you cover at the moment, and how many would you like to cover? Yeah, so this more is a little bit vague, you see? You wouldn't know by the time how much is going on. So from to, for example, if that is possible, I know. Or from X hours to Y hours a week.
Yes, it's like, say it's like 2 to 3 hours per day. I would like to make it like 4 to 5 hours in a day.
Okay. Now, do you guys already see this is very different than having just written the issue is time management? If I can write it correctly. Time management. How can I improve by the end of May my time management such that I can cover, that I can cover from 3 to hours, that I can study, increase my study time. Cool. So by adding a plus and a plus. So maybe we have some experts here, just maybe, on time management. I'm sure we have some victims of time management here, but do we have some experts? I'm a good victim. So could we have some ideas? Some maybe there's why don't we do a hypothesis tree? Because I think an issue tree we understand. You know, let's say a hypothesis would be. Let's write a hypothesis. What could be a hypothesis? How could you do that? How could we do this? You have an idea yourself? You could always ask the client, hey boss, you know, Trishala, do you have a hypothesis? What could work?
I'm thinking through it actually.
Yeah. So we need two, it seems like sometimes we only need 1 hour and sometimes we need up to 3 hours per week, per day so how do we free up 1 to 3 hours per day? What's an idea? See, sometimes we don't have a hypothesis, so maybe this is for me an indication we go into an issue tree. So we just randomly write down all the issues and see what could, so what's either the issue or what are the solutions? We have to decide what type of tree you want to do. So do you have a better insight of all the issues that you have? We could write down the issues first and yeah, give me an issue. Why can't you do it? What's the problem?
Okay, like issues in the sense, I guess some unplanned work in the office to take care.
Unplanned work. Mm-hmm. What's the second part? Mm-hmm. Unplanned work. Okay. Maybe we need to make that more specific. You know, we could say, what? Maybe there are different types of unplanned work, right? So then we go deeper here in the tree, but what is a different reason why you can't? What's a different issue?
Okay, the kind of the job I'm doing, at times, the needs from the management comes in on daily basis. Like in the Scrum stand-up, we end up getting to know that, okay, there are like 2 or 3 more items we need to take care because it is a release time. So maybe the unplanned work is something related to the release time of the product, which is nearby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some defects in the product which is popping in at the end moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that leads to you then working longer than necessary and things like that. Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So is there any other category that is taking up your time? You could sleep less. Oh, this is sleep. The issue is sleep, right? Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sleeping too much. You know, you sleep 4 hours. Come on, man. What world are you living in? So that's those kind of, you know, or if I'm a bit more general here, for example, you know, private activities take up too much time. For example, let me be funny, sleep, you know, but it could also be, you know, taking care of siblings or something like that, you know, and et cetera, right? So this is the way that you go about it. And then what you can do is next to each issue tree, you can write down possible solutions or experiments of what you could try out, right? For example, the unplanned work, right? You might say, how can you, maybe you have to experiment with going to your boss and your team, saying, look, boss, you were very kind to support my master's studies here. At the same time, it's nice to get moral support, but I also need tangible support now. So even though we're doing the Scrum thing, I can do, of the 3 things that have popped up, the most important one is this one. I can put in 1 hour of work today, and then I have non-negotiable work for my studies. So the possible experiment would be to negotiate with your boss a different way, modus operandi, for example, right? Or you need defects in products. Maybe you don't prioritize defects well enough. So if you would have a better defects prioritization agreement within your teams, right? Maybe you could create a little bit of space. So not everything, just because there's a defect doesn't mean we need to take care of it. So we can even go deeper into the defects. What type of defects are there, right? And so on and so forth. And this allows a systematic way of solving. And in the interest of time, let me show you how the iterative idea would work, right? You define a problem, you build an issue tree, then you develop, sometimes in consulting, we write already the answer of how it would look like, yeah, as a way to write a storyline. So you already, even though you don't know the answer yet, you build a possible answer. You know, well, the issue is, and I'll show you in a moment a structure how that works. Then you develop a work plan around each one of these, of the release time product, defects in product. Let's say all on these categories, there would be 4 different analyses, Manu. You could say, who in the team would like to take up the analysis on release time of products? Who in the team would like to take defects in products analysis? Who in the team wants to take care of taking care of, let's say, stakeholders, right? Boss is calling, we're in so many meetings, you know, and we don't have time to do our proper work because we have so much time in our meetings. Who can actually analyze our meetings from the last 2 months and come up with the way that we can better manage this? Yeah, you put this into a work plan, you gather the data and analyze it, and then you present the analysis. And this is a weekly cycle. It's a bit like a scrum, yeah? So by the end of the week, you say, well, I don't know whether we'll be able to solve everything, but let me show you what we have been able to solve by the end of the week so that we can do another cycle that next week becomes clearer, okay? And the building commitment is, that happens when you do these cycles with your management. You start engaging them in communication. And oftentimes that is something that as an analytics translator, you need to do. You need to manage that. If you wait for your boss to give you the time, it can be that they are not giving you the necessary time. You need to be able to demand the time that you need to do a proper exchange of these ideas. This is very important. Lastly, at McKinsey, the way that we communicate is there's two, this is important, for example, Zahra, since you're doing some research, right? We often do the analysis, we do like the orange boxes, then we come to a major argument, and then we synthesize this to a big thought. But communication often needs to go top down, especially in management circles. If you say, well, you know, we did 15 analyses and, you know, there's a couple of interesting findings. The findings are 1 to 5. And let me explain to you each one of the findings. By the time you are at the end and said, so what this means is you have already lost the management. At McKinsey, we have something that's called an elevator speech that says, if you meet your executive at the door opens of the elevator, oh my God, there is our CEO. And she is asking you, so how's the analysis going? What are the preliminary results? And if you say, yeah, we are doing, I mean, it's great, the Scrum teams are working and we are finding some initial nice, interesting results, and it's too early to call, and you know, and the executive has already arrived at her floor and you didn't have enough time to tell her. So the elevator speech is the 30 seconds or so that you have to explain the person what you're doing that is relevant to the business. And that's the governing thought. So you start top-down communication, as it's called. You say, you know what? Our hypothesis is that we'll be able to increase the speed to customers by pulling 2 levers. And if we're doing a 3rd lever, we might even get the reliability up. And we need 2 more weeks to substantiate our analysis. Would you like to know more? This is really interesting. Could we schedule a meeting so that you explain it to me a little bit more, what these 3 levers are that you mentioned? Oh yeah, sure. So that's the pyramid principle of communication. The pyramid, because you have the underlying data and it builds up to higher data, but you don't communicate. You build the pyramid stone by stone, but you communicate it top down. Yeah, and keeping these 2 paths of building up but communicating down in mind is very important. And one way to communicate is through a framework called situation complication. Here it says question, but it's the solution to that question. So you say, boss, the situation of the company is like this. You asked us this question. The complication that we found is that we don't have all the data in-house, but the solution is we have found three levers that allow us to get control of our speed and reliability time to our customer. And sometimes in the elevator speech, you start with the solution, and then you use the situation and the complication to provide the main line, right? So you have the recommendation, you have the supporting logic, and the supporting fact below. So time runs, as I can see. And I would like you to please unmute yourself, and I would like to use a few minutes of the conversation to think about, to hear a little bit your voices. This is also maybe for checkout. I mean, some of you might have to leave. Please, if you have to leave urgently, please use this as an opportunity to share with us your thoughts about what this might mean to you in your growth as an advisor, or in your own development of bringing more business style thinking to your work. Let's have a few minutes on discussing that, and then I think, Lara, we close the big session, and we have a bit more time for conversations with our students, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we're just going to take some closing comments from all of you. And also we are running a bit over time. So if you do have to leave, remember that we will also be sharing a recording with you after the call.
Mm-hmm. And I've also put into this deck that we'll be sharing two books that are written by McKinsey alumni. One is on problem solving, and one is on this pyramid principle. And if you don't have that in your library, I think this would be great. Yeah. So, but going back to discussions, please, what questions have come up for you? What questions are you asking yourself? What does this mean to you in your current roles, or in your future, in what you could do in the future potentially?
Yeah, Alper, this is Mani here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let me discuss about my current situation where I am now. And here the expectation from the management and senior management is to see myself as a trusted advisor over the year. So they have clearly spoken to me that, Mani, you have to build up a skill that they can trust on my decisions and my advice is what I'm going to do. So this trusted advisor is a big thing for me, how to build it and how to create that kind of technical as well as the business, professional, and this many things are coming into my mind, that in how do I call myself, okay, over a 5 months or 6 months, I became a trusted advisor for my senior executives. Mm-hmm. Okay. So whenever they give some project to me and how I'm going to deliver it with like speed and reliability. So this thing is really, I wanted to discuss with you more. So I don't know what is this trusted advisor, and yeah, how to build it, how to say that, yes, I am ready, or I am still learning, but I don't think there's time for learning. I have to prove.
Yeah. So since you have that question very clear, I'm wondering, have you what your executive would say as an answer to that question?
So their expectation, it's very clear that whenever any new projects come, so it should be owned by me and it should be completely delivered as a success. So that's what they're looking, technical plus management plus team, everything they're expecting as a trusted advisor.
Yeah, so that's great. So I think it would help you to nail them down a bit on some of the specifics that they're judging you. So when they say owning, I think we have a notion of what that might mean. But again, I would ask them, so boss, if you saw me owning this like 10 out of 10, right, like ballpark, how would you know? What are the things, the indicators that you would be able to observe me doing, saying, that would give you the confidence that I am doing this perfectly? Well, if you would be, I would be able to see you, come to me with, solutions. I would be able to see you, how you are making me aware of delays in the team, and that you're proposing alternative ways of managing this, or, I think you would be communicating the results in a, I don't know, what is it, top-down way, and things like, okay, boss, you mentioned 3 things here. Very good. I've noted them down. Now, maybe you need to dig a little bit deeper. You said top-down way. I mean, if you look at these 3 criteria you've given to me, how much would you score me on these at the moment, or on your experience of the last 2 or 3 months? And you would say, well, on top-down communication, on that presentation, I would say, honestly, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Say, look, boss, I mean, this is for me to help. So whatever is your truth, please say it, Well, I think 3, at best 4. Oh, okay. Well, that's better than 0 or 1, I guess. So I must be doing something right. Well, yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that you're organizing the presentations and the PowerPoints, but this and this is lacking. So boss, if I wanted to take this, I mean, 10 is maybe too ambitious in one leap, but if I wanted to get this up to a 6, what would be would that be satisfactory to you in the medium term, 3 to 4 months? Yeah, I think that's a fair goal. So boss, if I am now a 3 or a 4, what's the one step that you would already see that I'm making some progress on this? What's the one big thing that would make a big difference to you? Yeah. So you see, these are conversations that I wish your executive would be mature to be able that specifically to have with you. But if they're not doing it, you need to have the you have to manage that conversation for your own sake, because else you'll be just working on a very general thing. So you need to build your own issue tree. Yeah. How do I improve my business, my trusted advisorship skill? So you need to know what are the branches, but you can't answer that yourself. You can only answer it by the extent that your executive gives you feedback on what they are expecting. Mm-hmm. So for me, the key question there to ask is, boss, if I were a 10 out of 10, how would you know that what would you be able to see, observe? What would people be telling you about me that you would be able to say that, right? Then you write down all those things, and then you say, and give me a rating of how you see me in the past weeks and months. And then thirdly, tell me how I can improve as a first step that would make a big difference to you. So this way you don't work on more than 2 or 3 things at the same time, and you're working on. Boss, thank you so much. It's tremendously helpful. Can I get feedback from you by the end of May? I'll experiment with these a little bit. I don't know if I'll have a quick solution right away, but I want to try out some couple of things. And if I'm making some progress, I would love to hear from you real time. But if at the latest, I would like to just stay on the ball and, can we have some lunch and talk about this by end of May? Done. And then end of June, end of July, end of August. If they give you the time, that's great. If they don't give you the time, then take it. Yeah, it's the only way, because hey, boss, how can you expect me to improve if I'm out of touch with you? Good enough?
Yeah, but those questions, I think I need to. I like that the pyramid communication and that tree approach. So this really gives the drill down from top level to then smaller issues, then still the smaller issues, and this goes down. While creating that issue tree itself, so many mindful question arises, and those looks very small, but asking and clarifying those questions with the superiors or executives, that I feel that really going to help me, because it's right now it's dealing with ambiguity is huge. I have huge ambiguity right now, and at time it's always problem. So I can't go any path randomly just to go and say, oh, I was in wrong path. So I will go with that model. I like that issue tree. That is really going to solve this current problem.
Yeah. I think that's a great, with ambiguity, it's not easy to manage ambiguity, and so it's good to, the issue tree puts some structure into that ambiguity. Yeah?
Yep. Thanks.
Cool. You're welcome. So, part of the ELU curriculum is Leadership 3.0, and this is definitely part of it. So I'm wondering, I think this is, even current students, you haven't touched that part of the curriculum just yet, the Agile leadership stuff. That's one of our later modules. But for some of you who have not had yet contact with ELU, I'm curious, for some of our new listeners, what has been the insights for you? Let's see, who's there? Danush, Sartak, Nadia, you wanted to get some more ideas for your business on how data analytics works in business. I'm wondering what impact this had on you. Osama, Gracie, Samar. Feel free to unmute yourself and share with us a bit.
Well, it's given me a bit of an insight on the different aspects, and the different processes involved in actual analytics, like, from defining the problem and onwards, it's not just because as part of the job, we do a lot of predictive maintenance and things like that. So, and I have seen that aspect of it, but not from a business side. I've just seen it more from the technological side. And so with this, presentation, with your presentation, it gave me a bit more insight into, how it, I can see, some business problems we could apply analytics to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And, it might be useful to indeed go on the McKinsey Quarterly and the McKinsey Global Institute websites and read up on some of those areas, because McKinsey is doing some, has some insights also on the industries with predictive maintenance and those kind of things. And machine learning is a very hot area in which this is applied. Also, Quantum Black, I know, has done some work in that area. In the oil and gas fields, and it would be interesting to if you smarten yourselves up. I think if you understand a little bit the language of value and business value that you would find in these McKinsey Quarterly articles, because they're written to those audience, maybe shifting your language could already create a different connection. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jen.
I will look into those publications because yes, this cost-benefit analysis is something we have to do on a yearly basis in order to, convince clients to, for a lot of our projects, it's long-term service contracts, and I can see the application of, data science on in these reports, these cost-benefit analysis reports.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely. Thank you for sharing. Zahra, for you, in your research areas, you mentioned what implications did that hold for you?
For me, sometimes the problem solving is very hard to manage because you are facing a lots of professor. It is very hard to say this approach is correct and this approach is not correct, because most of the time there are very experienced professor and you are working on a research that is very new, and finding an approach that you are thinking is correct, maybe because they have lots of experience, they think it is not correct. Actually, managing this situation, it is very hard, and sometimes I have problem with this situation.
Yeah, universities can be very hierarchical, right? And so it's not so. It's a challenge to find a communication style where you are not perceived as confrontational, but one that is collaborative and picks up on those ideas. So this is another, I think, a nice example of saying just having the right analysis or the right structure is not enough. It's important, but you know to be also a skillful communicator, and that includes knowing a bit the psychology of the people that you're with, the hierarchical worlds in which you are navigating. Yeah, so this is indeed a huge competence. Yeah, this is a huge competence, and something that a further development area. So maybe this is also something for action learning. Yeah, I think this is a good way in which you can bring in topics to your action learning sets and say, because I think as an action learning colleague, I would want to know more about that particular professor, how he or she is different from other professors, and what it is about you that makes it, that's finding it difficult to object to that professor or say it in a way that is more acceptable. You see, I think this is a huge area for personal learning through using the action of everyday life, the experience of everyday life. Yeah. So I entrust you into the capable hands of your colleagues on this topic.
Yeah, sure.
That in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Danush, how was it for you?
Yeah, it was good. I'm an electronics graduate, so I'll be not having an idea about data science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I thought data science is a hottest skill and now. So
I just wanted to learn
data science and continue my
career in
data science.
It was a bit hard to hear, Danush. I'm sorry. There was some feedback, I think, in the connection. But maybe you can type your insights, and maybe we can hear from another person as well. Shahrukh, Sartak, Gracie. And then we conclude the session this way. If you like to share, of course.
Hello, Alper.
Yes,
Shahrukh here.
Hi, Shahrukh.
Yeah, I have a question regarding, being a developer or being a coder in a company.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the managers ask you like, now you have to present everything to the CEO or the founders of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of thing, I have never really done that.
Mm-hmm.
because I am good at in coding or like seeing the technical part.
Mm-hmm.
And the business part somewhat, because of the business part I can learn or understand or like talk to with my manager, a single person. But when you see that you are going to like pitch something to the founders and you have to convince them that what I am thinking right now is good for the company, and this is the first time of your life and they are going to ask you many questions and you don't know what they are going to ask, like what they are expecting and what they are going to ask you. So how to handle these situations, or to preparing yourself for this situation, how should I go about this thing?
I mean, first of all, I would say thank you so much for giving me this tremendous opportunity. I mean, I feel honored and humbled at the same time. I would like to make you proud. And for that, I need your support to succeed. Because if I would just go in right now like this at my level of skill, this is like for you to send me right now into a 40-kilometer marathon. So the likelihood that I will not make it is pretty high. That I could do it with proper support and coaching by you, I think is also very high. So for me, that would mean, could you help me translate my analytical insights into a management presentation that is that works with this particular company executive or founder or owner? Because if I just look it now up in books and stuff like that, I can make some kind of top level executive presentation, but I've never been in front of that person. And so I don't know, maybe I present one thing and they will already stop me and just say, stop talking about the slides, talk to me directly. How much money are we going to make? And say, oh, I don't even have a slide on that one. So I need to know, are they more money oriented? Do they care for the details? Some people don't care for the details at all. They just want to know, how will it work? Some people say, I don't care how it works internally. I want to know, how does the customer see it? What's from the customer side? Other people want to know, I want to know exactly how it works. And you better explain to me like a dummy can understand, right? Explain it like you would explain to your mom, for example. So these are many questions that executives have very different styles in which they would like to know the information. So maybe being in that company, you know already a little bit about that. Maybe your boss does. Maybe other people who have made presentations to that executive or to that board of executives can give you some insights. So I would go out on a bit of an interviewing way, Shahrukh. And also, I would make sure that you grab your boss by a little bit, this is a little bit of working again with hierarchy, like I was saying to Zahra, right? You need to have a little bit of the communication that you say, hey, boss, thanks for the opportunity. I think I need some coaching. Could you show me one or two examples of presentations that you have made to the executive or that has worked for them? So I can already do a little bit of my homework. I want to understand, I want to review that a little bit, understand what I don't know yet, and then come back to you with some more specific ways in which I could actually turn the insights that we have into stuff. So this would be great, because then I can grow from being a coder to an analytics, a business analytics advisor. I would love that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, helpful. Yeah. I think you meant to say that I should talk to my manager or my boss about this topic and all, and get as many insight from him, like how they are, how they're going to ask type of questions, and which type of questions they are going to ask, and the examples, how to present to them, and how to convince them.
Yeah. I mean, you could ask the same question that I posed with Manu. You could ask your boss, hey boss, if I would make a 10 out of 10 presentation, how would you know this is an awesome presentation? What are the things I need to get right that would work with this executive? And then you can you can then dig a little bit deeper after your investigation, and don't shy away. Be courageous enough to tell what you can do and what you need to learn, and what you need from your boss for learning. Because if you don't inform them, and after the meeting I come to you and said, man, Shahrukh, I mean, what was that about? Well, boss, I'm not so good in making or presenting this or that aspect. I really get very technical. And said, well, Shahrukh, if you would have told me, we would have practiced once or twice. Well, boss, I assumed that you don't have the time and stuff like that. Shahrukh, this is a super important presentation. If you would have told me, I would have taken the time. Or I would have given you I would have suggested that you practice with, I don't know.
Some other colleagues or somewhere like.
Yeah, exactly. So it's your obligation, you're the boss. It's my obligation to tell you what I can do well and what I need to practice. And if I wouldn't tell you, you have every right to be mad at me after the meeting if I screw it up. So I'd rather tell you now what I think I need to learn. Now that you have told me about what makes a great presentation for this executive. You know? So it's your obligation to tell your boss, rather than assuming that. And maybe they are the type that doesn't coach well and do this kind of stuff, but it's still, then it's even more important that you assert what you need to do in a way that, again, works for the objective. Because your objective is to make your boss proud, make a good presentation, present your work in an awesome way, and we can't do that alone.
Yeah. So it's a two-way communication thing, and which I should do it so that we are on the same page before going in this kind of meeting.
Absolutely, yeah. I would definitely schedule some 2 review meetings. One review meeting where you go through the material and you get some sense whether this is, you can present a dummy version or like a draft, and one meeting in which you can dry run the presentation. You say, boss, can I just present it to you as if you were that boss? So you give me feedback like the boss would, not like you. Maybe it works for you, but it doesn't work for them. So put yourself into the shoes and put the head of the executive, the owner, and then give me feedback from that perspective.
Yeah. It's really nice. Yeah. Now I got the thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for this insight.
So, again, with Manu, sometimes we have to give specific ideas to our bosses, because they might say, oh, this is a great idea. I wouldn't have thought about that. Well,
yes.
Sometimes you need to come and test the ideas, and some of them they will bite, and sometimes they will not bite, and sometimes you need to push and insist a little bit more, and sometimes you will be in situations where you don't get what you need. That is also clear. But definitely avoid that you are set up for failure. Try to arrange the environment that you're set up for success.
Yeah.
So I would even talk, when I was a McKinsey consultant, I would go to the assistants of the CEOs and ask them, hey, we're going to have this presentation. This is the first time we're working in this company. Can you give me, I'd love to make sure, I want to make sure this works out good for, SCK. What does SCK need for it, right? And then she tell, well, look, what you need to be mindful of, he hates long presentations, and so on and so forth. So these kind of things are also good sources of information.
Yeah. So this will give me out beforehand, like everything I should be prepared for.
Yeah, it's a little bit of work. It's great. It's great that you have this opportunity to practice these.
Yes. Thanks.
You're welcome. So I think, we are at the end of we are over our time, and I thank you very much for your attention and your participation. We'll send out the materials, and if you have more insights that you want, please stay in touch with us with ELU. And maybe see you in a course or class in the near future. Lara, I give it to you maybe for some closing words as well.
Yes, thank you, Alper. And I think it's a great sign that we still have almost everyone here, even though we are a bit over time. So I think it was very fruitful. And also to hear all of your voices and actually hear your thoughts and some of your questions. So again, we will share the recording of this webinar as well as some of the resources, including this presentation itself. So you can always check back for reference. And now we will have one private session with our students. So everyone else, I will kindly ask you to leave the call. And to our students, if you're able to, you're free to stay and just perhaps discuss a few more issues in more detail with Alper.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you, Alper. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Nadias.